Hey, what is up, everybody? I'm Michael Woods, founder of Inclusive Sport Design, and welcome to the Sport is for Everybody podcast, where we talk all things inclusion in sport with amazing guests who are out there making it happen. We are recording on beautiful Gundungurra country, and I'd like to acknowledge and thank the Gundungurra people and pay my respects to their elders past and present. Also want to pay my respects and welcome all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and all other Indigenous and First Nations peoples who are watching or listening in. Now, this is episode number 11, and today I'm with Caragh McMurtry to discuss neurodivergence in sport. Caragh is a former Olympic rower, and her journey through sport has been rocky to say the least. Caragh says sport saved her as a youth and continues to be her greatest self-management tool, but some of her worst experiences have also been born from high-performance sport and a culture that is far from inclusive. These experiences have driven her to create change through her organisation, Neurodiverse Sport. In this chat, Caragh shares her experience as an athlete with autism, including the traumatic impacts of years of misdiagnosis. And we discuss her work to create a more inclusive sports sector through her organisation, Neurodiverse Sport. Plus, we touch on her experience as a new mum, and we attempt our usual quick fire questions. And as always, stick around to the end for Caragh's top inclusion tip. So without further ado, let's get into it. Caragh McMurtry, welcome to the Sport is for Everybody podcast. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
No worries. I'm looking forward to this chat. It's been a little while in the making. No, we connected months ago, I think now.
Yeah, it was.
Can't remember, but it's been a while, but we're finally here, which is great. I want to start at the start. I want to start with your sporting journey as a kid. How did you get into sport? What's that story?
So I think I've always been really active. As a child, as soon as I could crawl, I was actually a really fat baby. But as soon as I could crawl, I lost all that weight, and I wouldn't say I was into sport. I was just into moving and just doing anything that I could do to just expend that energy that I had, and just moving around, it made me feel good. In retrospect, I think it was the attention regulation, the emotional regulation, and the kind of sensory feedback that it gave me that probably was why it made me feel so good. But yeah, as a kid, luckily we lived on the same road as a park. I say a park, it was it had all the climbing frame stuff, and then the tarmac and goals and things like that. So not a grass park, but that was amazing because I would just, as soon as I'd get home from school, I'd go up there. I'd be up there all weekend, all through the holidays, just taking my skips out or just doing handstands, cartwheels, whatever. It was just those are some glorious memories. And then when I got to secondary school, there were more sports on offer. So I think at primary school I did football. I was on the football team, and I think I did dance outside of school. I did gymnastics as well. But then at secondary school, I tried my hand at all of the after-school clubs. So that would be netball, volleyball, those types of things. And then they randomly offered rowing. So I went to a sort of state school, but there was a program run by British Rowing at the time that was trying to get more state school participation in the sport.
Yeah,
so that was a local rowing club hosted this program and worked with two schools, and my school was one of them. And so I just tried rowing along with all the other sports. I liked the fact that with the other sports, they were run by the school, and they were run by just a teacher that was keen on that sport. Whereas with rowing, because it was attached to an external club, we got to go to that club away from school, and that was interesting. Got to go to the water.
Any chance to get out of school is a good choice.
Any chance to get out of school or just be somewhere else, somewhere new. It's in the environment. And I don't know what really drew me to rowing in particular, but I got along with it probably a bit better than the other sports. I think I was good at it. I like stood out for being good at it like earlier on, whereas like some of the other sports I was probably just more average and enthusiastic. I don't know. Like I didn't feel there was always someone better than me, and I hated that. Whereas with rowing, like I was like immediately good because I think I was just naturally quite strong. But then there were things that it offered me that other sports couldn't necessarily. So I think there was a really cathartic element to it. So I really enjoyed the rhythm of it. So even though I was like, even when I was pushing hard, like actually pushing hard gave me some really amazing sensory feedback. I'm speaking as someone who knows about neurodivergence now, but like
at the time it just felt good, right?
It just felt so good. Yeah, like I like, if I do like exercises that aren't hard enough, so say in like on a football pitch or a netball court, like a lot of the time you don't have the ball and you're standing there doing nothing. And for me, that's like incredibly boring. And like, I just get itchy feet. Whereas like with rowing, like you're doing it the whole time. Like to be honest, that was my pitfall, was I pushed too hard all the time, probably slowed the boat down. But it got me so far doing that. It made me really strong and like good at the sport. But yeah, it was that kind of like push and then relax was just giving me everything that I needed. And also just being on the water, like in the middle. I lived in a city as well, and it wasn't a bad area, but it wasn't like a really nice area. It was like very industrial, but like being in the middle of the water, you just feel like you're away from everything and the hustle and bustle, and
there's space there, right?
Yeah, I think I particularly like that as well. And then there's probably like a community element to that club as well. Everyone was just normal people, like I say normal people with normal jobs. And I just felt like there was diversity. So I just felt like one person among a lot of different people rather than sticking out for being different.
Yeah, and I guess the difference you're talking about is the fact that although at the time you probably didn't realize, at least, like the autism and neurodiversity that you were experiencing as it, right? And it explains why rowing probably really worked for you. And I know you've described your sporting experience as somewhat rocky, right? Like you've just explained and described some really great experiences of what you found in rowing and just moving in general as a kid. But talk to us about some of the challenges and experiences that you have had through that time as well.
Yeah. So I think, as like a junior and under 23 athlete, like it was generally good. Like the difficulties I had were probably, they were going to happen anyway. I had those difficulties because I had undiagnosed autism. Like I think the first bout of depression I got was when I was like 12. And I remember why. It was because my like annoying logic brain was like I'd start thinking about the meaning of life and stuff. I literally had an existential crisis at the age of 12. I think I got like upset because I realized that the whole world had already been explored and everything had been found out. Literally, that's the kind of thing that says
there's nothing left for me.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just like, couldn't get my head around the universe. These are the kind of things that I was thinking of at the age of 12, and that would like set me into depression. But yeah, and I had a big period of an eating disorder essentially at like around 19, which seems to be like an initiation for every neurodivergent or autistic girl, especially athletes. Like the amount of girls that I've come across that around that age have developed an eating disorder, it's very strange. I'm sure that you could like deduce like patterns and reasoning behind it. But yeah, that happened to me. But rowing at that time was like my outlet and my safe place. And that was what kept me grounded and kept me happy, kept me out of trouble. Whereas I would say when I joined the national team, the senior team, so it was like my second or third year of university at the time, like that was the start of rowing not being my safe place.
Yeah, right.
And
what was it that changed?
like I said, I felt like one of a diverse group of people in my community club. I'd say I felt like the odd one out when I joined the senior team. I don't talk about these things very much, but it's hard because I know that people were just trying to like be nice maybe. But I remember for my birthday, like the girls like chipped together. They'd always chip together to get people presents, but they chipped together to get me like a certain sports bra because my sports bras were like they were all like really cheap and a bit gross. And like people would make, not gross, but just not very fashionable. And
Just standard ones.
yeah, people would make comments about it and then got me a new sports bra. And I was like, that's great. Okay. But I can't then afford to get a load more of these. Although eventually I could, because I was on like funding, not great funding, but it was different to being like dirt poor. But I don't know. I felt like I came from a very different world to a lot of people. And then on top of that, I thought differently. I learned differently. I communicated differently. And I rubbed people up the wrong way. And I couldn't understand why. Like I had the best intentions all the time. And I just remember being really frustrated all the time. And like, why does no one get me? Why is this so hard? Like, why is everything outside of the boat so hard? Like, get told to smile, get told to socialize more, get told to ask less questions. And just, it was like the social dynamics were just, it felt like a TV drama is how I would say. Like you have like Pretty Little Liars and things. Like high school dramas, American high school dramas. It felt like that. And that is just not me at all. And it was exhausting. So like that really wore away at me. And I also think a big thing that affected my energy and emotions at that time was I have a massive justice complex. And for me, like things just have to be fair. And what I found out in elite sport, it's not necessarily who's the fastest or who tries the hardest that gets places. It's also
there's other factors.
So it is partly that, but there are other factors like who can talk the talk, who looks a certain way, who comes from a certain place, and all those things. I just that really impacted. And there were some specific scenarios where I think because I am the way I am, I was like thrown under the bus a bit. Or there are scenarios where I watched someone else get thrown under the bus. And for a lot of people, they might be able to be bystanders and let that go. But I couldn't. It affected me so much. And maybe that's a weakness on my part. Maybe that I could never be like the best athlete I could be because I had that. And I couldn't be totally selfish, but it really emotionally impacted me. And I was essentially misdiagnosed at that time because at that time I didn't have a diagnosis of anything, or apart from probably I'd had random diagnosis of like depression, generalized anxiety disorder, racking them up. And then I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and which is a serious psychiatric condition.
Yeah, that's a big deal, right? And
it's a big deal.
Tell us about that. Was that within the high performance program environment where that diagnosis was given, or was that something that you
it was like
dealt with outside of that? Or
it was something I dealt with outside, but there was communication between. So I'm still figuring out how I influence the system to change this, but essentially I don't think there was enough safeguarding in place. I was a very young athlete at the time and got this diagnosis, which was clearly wrong, and I was put on a lot of medication, and I was relaying that to the doctor, to the coaches. I was writing that medication, the list would grow and grow, because if it's not working, add more. That's the kind of just throw medication at it, throw more at it. So over the years, I was on adding more, it was going up. There was other things added. And I was writing this down on my drugs declaration form all the time. And I was clearly struggling. I was like a shadow of the athlete that I used to be. But no one said, okay, let's like look at you holistically. What's going on? How can we help you? It was just, if you're struggling, give up or sort it out yourself. That was the attitude, and that's how I felt. And that made me hide things even. That made me not hide things, but it made me like close down even more and adopt that attitude of I just have to make this work. Because if I felt like if I had said, if I'd been more obvious and more forthright with my diagnosis and the issues that I was facing, and I let it show that I was really struggling, even though you could obviously see it, if I was blatant about it, I felt like they would just say, and I know they would say this, well, you're just not good enough then. Rather than being like,
see you later.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, well, I don't have a choice. I can't let them know what's going on so that they can help me, because that's just not a choice. And it wasn't until five years down the line that essentially there was an intervention. But even that was driven by this girl is hanging around, like not really performing, not really contributing, and we need to get rid of her. I believe on mental health grounds was the wording.
It begs a question around high performance environments, and I've been in high performance environments as well professionally, not as an athlete. Just make that clear. But been around high performance environments, predominantly in Paralympic sport, from my perspective, and that's a little bit of a different beast, because you're dealing with diversity and difference in a whole range of factors every day in the performance environment. But in the Olympic context, what is it about, or what was it about the high performance environment? Do you think that maybe your specific needs or the challenges that you were facing were, I don't want to put words in your mouth, I don't want to say that they were overlooked, but maybe they were misunderstood, or they certainly weren't considered holistically, as you say? What is it about the high performance environment that maybe made that difficult?
I think it's
in
like
your case,
attitudes of coaches and that kind of, I think that a lot of people don't understand the difference between equality and equity in terms of coaching and what you're giving athletes. So it's like very much, that's when I talk about a one size fits all system, it's like, I don't think people quite understand that, well, that size suits some people really well and some people not so well. So actually you're not treating them equitably. There's equality in what you're doing, but not in the outcome. And actually it would be more fair if you did treat people differently. But then it's funny, because that would always be the kind of comeback would be like, if I would ever suggest a kind of like a support strategy, when I say a support strategy, I'm talking like, can I do this individual session somewhere else? So we're training individually anyway, not training like in a crew boat or anything. We're doing an ergo. Can I do it somewhere else? Because the gym is, the music's so loud that the floors are shaking, and there's fluorescent
whatever
lighting
else
in
is
here.
going on in there.
Yeah, and that's like really saps my energy. I'm gonna have to like recover twice as hard as everyone else. Can I do it at a gym somewhere else where it's quieter, or at home, or a rowing club? No, we can't do that, because that's preferential treatment. And if we do it for you, then someone else will want to do it. So that was a big one. But then I was always confused, because I was like, but that person over there gets to do what they want. So it was like, it was weird. There was like a few people that just always got to do what they want, but then the kind of like the masses had to follow the rules, and one rule for everyone. But it was like, it was almost like, if you show yourself to excel, you can have more flexibility and you can do what you like. But that kind of keeps some people up here and keeps some people down here, because, well, these people can't excel because they're hamstrung from the start. So do you know what I mean? And these people are always going to
Yeah.
maintain their position up here because they're doing things in the way that suits them. And then you get a stagnant team that way as well, which is what happened.
Do you think that's changed? Yeah. Do you think that's changed? Gene?
It's hard to say. I think there is more. There's a bit, but there is more. From what I can tell, there's more opportunity for people to move up and down. There's more kind of like equal testing, rather than in the past.
Yeah.
It was very much like I said. There's a group that just get like churned around, and there's a group that get protected. So I think actually, but I know it's not perfect, and it's still. I think it's like halfway there. I think it has changed to a degree, but, you know, I've heard different things from different people.
And I guess not being inside the system as well makes it difficult to see the goings-ons and things like that. And I guess that's probably a good segue into talking about the work you're doing now, which is essentially the reason we've got you on the podcast today, is to talk about the work you're doing with Neurodiverse Sport. So tell us, what's that all about? What's the organisation do? How did that get started? And what's the story for Neurodiverse Sport?
So it got started because I guess the end of the sort of like rowing journey for me was positive and negative. So like I said, I was referred to the UK Sport Mental Health Panel. Rather than saying, yeah, this girl needs to stop because she can't hack it mentally, they said this girl is autistic and needs these support strategies. And actually, I then narrowed them down to 3 very simple things, and really around communication mainly, and a bit around sensory stuff. But in short, titrating off medication as well, I was able to get back to performing at the level that I was when I joined the team, and I was selected for the Tokyo Olympics. After the Olympics, I had a period of things going really well because there was like an amount of freedom and flexibility, and then essentially another head coach came in, and like I said, although there were some positives in terms of everyone had a fresh slate, it felt like no one had a black mark against their name, which was something I struggled with a lot. It was very much like the theory of put you through stress every day so that racing doesn't feel stressful.
Yeah,
so it was like overload. But obviously, if you've got autism or ADHD or something like that, where you need decompression periods, that's just like the opposite. And I just knew what was going to happen. And I get it go for 2 months, like bearing in mind that I'd had 8 months of being on form, like coming first and second in everything. And then I was like, oh no, this does not sound good. But I gave it everything for 2 months and then blew up. And I was like, I knew this was going to happen. But rather than before, I blamed myself and was like, I could try this. I was like, I knew it wasn't going to happen in this system, but I knew what I was capable of because I had that reminder after so many years. And so I retired at that moment and was like, I need to do something to change sport systemically so that it's not up to every individual autistic athlete or athlete with ADHD or any other condition to literally coach the coach on how to coach them, as well as try and be the best athlete they could be, because that's bloody exhausting. The amount of times that when I did get a diagnosis of autism, it was still up to me to tell people and to advocate for my needs and to educate them. And you don't know what their reaction is going to be. And for some people, like, actually really insulting. It's not that they mean to be. Some people, it feels like they just Googled autism. Some people, they just talk slower to you. Some people talk about the stress that you can't manage. Some people can't look at you in the eye. And you're like, you have all these reactions, and then you're trying to be a super confident, proud athlete and put out the best performances you can. When people can't even look at you because they're like low-key disgusted. So like literally.
Simple response is yeah, cool. What do you need?
Yeah. But I think people are just,
See,
they just don't know. They're like, what? Like, a lot of people, they're like,
Yeah.
it's changing, but their view of autism was very stereotyped.
Like, you're going to blow up and have a meltdown when you don't get your
like
own way.
you're
But, you know,
super incapable, or you're really socially backwards, but a genius at the same time. Like, it's either one of those two.
Brain Man.
Exactly. But I was always more offended when people like would start like making assumptions about me in terms of like my capabilities, and that would really annoy me.
Yeah.
But I just guess I was like, right, the only way that this is going to change is if I contribute to it. I didn't expect to be doing things to the degree that I'm doing them now, because I was still really, my confidence was still really affected by that whole period. Like, I still had a lot of difficult emotions attached to it. And I'd only been diagnosed with autism for a few years at that point. And although I'd got some amazing help from the UK Sports Institute, I hadn't really explored it. So I still didn't know how my brain worked. And over the last few years, I've got to say, I'm just segueing, like, it's been amazing learning about that. And I wish I could go back with this knowledge and be an athlete again, because I wouldn't have half the trouble I had.
Well, let's take a little sidestep then, because there's probably people listening at home who maybe have heard, who know about autism, maybe have the same sort of perspectives with some of the people that you've mentioned, that they've Googled it and they've read the textbook definition, or they've heard the stereotypical sort of definitions. But do you want to give us a bit of a rundown of what's autism and what's neurodiversity in general from your point of view, just to educate the listeners, because there might be some people out there thinking, I need to know more.
Yeah, so like neurodiversity just describes how everyone's neurology and behavior differs, like every human being. And then neurodivergent refers to those who sit a bit further from the norm. If you were to create a sort of a graph, people would converge around a certain point. And then there are people who sit either side of that, or if you're going to look at it as a circle, there'd be people in the middle and people all around the outside. But essentially with autism, like, you're diagnosed because you show deficits in certain areas. So it would be like restricted and repetitive behavior, which is great if you're doing sports. So it doesn't feel like,
especially rowing.
It doesn't feel like a deficit there, like social and communication. But again, like we're moving more towards a social model of kind of disability or difference, and which kind of says that, well, why is that way of communicating wrong? It's just different. So again, I would like question whether they're deficits, but you might have, like, quite common with ADHD and autism is like executive functioning difficulties. So that's like almost like the planning and administration areas of your brain. But alongside these things are strengths as well. Everybody has strengths and challenges. And I guess the way that I would talk to coaches is, you're probably seeing someone's challenges at the moment. And if you're an elite coach, you think, well, I don't really want to invest in them because they're just difficult and they're finding everything difficult as well. But usually when people are challenged, they're not able to then access their strengths. If you give them the kind of support and the scaffolding that they need to overcome those daily challenges, or to be supported with them, then they can utilize those amazing strengths. Like, so irrelevant to rowing, but I like to brag about it all the time, but I'm a facial recognizer, so I will never forget. I should have been a spy. I will never forget a face. Like, I scored like in the top % in the test, where they like distort all the faces, but you can still pick it out. But it's just an example. Everyone will have a unique strength, or more than one unique strength. But if they are constantly overloaded or stressed because they're having to work really hard in other areas, they won't be able to show that to you, essentially. Yeah. And I think another thing that I would like to get across to like high performance coaches in particular is this kind of theory of evolutionary mismatch. So a lot of the ways that we go about things, like, we have we as a society have designed them ourselves. So we've almost imposed barriers on certain people. As an example, in school, we all sit at tables in rows, and that came from preparing to go and work in a factory and then a business. And it's not changed since then. And that really disadvantages those with ADHD, autism. But we,
pretty
as
much
a society,
any
have done
kid
that.
who functionally needs to move.
Exactly. Because I
real.
told you about the way that movement helped me and helped my brain. Like sitting at a desk all the time is not going to help. Whereas if I did standing learning or more practical learning, like I'm very capable of doing the learning, but in a certain way. But anyway, that's just like an example of how we've decided there's a way to do things and it's disadvantaged certain people. And so it's not even that is it really a deficit or is it just a difference? Because it's a barrier that's like created by people, but then we also have the power to alleviate those barriers. So I think in a sporting context, I'm like, well, there's a lot of things that we do in sport and the way that we train that we assume that it has to be that way because it's always been that way, or that's how we've always known it to be. Why can we not change it and make something else normal, or make it normal to provide lots of different things?
That's right. You mentioned the social model of disability, and take that approach and you place it into the sporting context and think about your examples of things. It's really like disability then and disadvantage is basically a result of trying to operate in a world that's not designed for you.
Yeah.
And if you can imagine yourself going into a workplace or into a shopping mall or into a place where everything's 2 foot taller than you can reach, or things are in a different language, right? You're in an environment that's not designed for you and you're at a disadvantage. And so many people go into sporting environments, into training environments from community level all the way up to high performance, where the environments aren't designed for them and they have to force themselves to square peg into a round hole kind of situation, and the amount of pressure that puts on a person and the opportunities that are lost, right, from a performance perspective, but also just in life experience and skill development and community engagement and social interactions. You're missing all these opportunities because it's just not designed for you.
Yeah, 100%.
But we can change those things, right?
Yeah,
We've designed it this way
yeah.
for a reason. We can change it, right?
Yeah. I think as an example in a sports context, like for some reason, I've spoken to a lot of netball players, but they talk about the floodlights, and the floodlights are always for some reason above or behind the netball hoop. And like for someone who's got like sensory sensitivities to like fluorescent lighting, like that's it. And then the rule is that you can't wear sunglasses or hats because it's just, I don't know, because in sport we love to tell people how they can dress.
Yeah.
But so you've put the floodlight above the hoop, and we've put I know you can't do loads about timing, but you can have flexible timing of sessions. And then we've said, and you can't use any support strategies either. It's just an example, like why have we done that? There's loads of other ways that we could do it.
Yeah. And it doesn't fundamentally change the nature of the activity.
No.
Or maybe just move the light. It's like there's an option.
Yeah.
Seems simple, but it's not. And so I guess you're working with a lot of organizations to try and explain those simple things to them. So who are you working with at the moment? What sort of projects come along?
I guess so. Like we're talking to the RFU at the moment, which is exciting. So that's
the rugby.
Rugby, yeah. Rugby union, and we've just finished a project, a very small project with the FA, so the Football Association, which hopefully will be the start of something bigger, in conversation with the LTA as well at the moment. To be honest, there's loads of people want to know what to do, because neurodiversity is a topic that is coming up more and more. More people are being diagnosed because they have access to diagnoses and there's more awareness. And more children feel able to advocate and then they're growing and they're then entering the sports environment, sports sector, and they're disclosing. And I think the sports sector has just been hit with this influx of questions and demands, and they just weren't expecting it. They don't know what to do. So I've named a few organisations that we work with, but literally like since we started 2 years ago, I'd say we've worked with probably 50 different sports.
Yeah.
And that's just everyone coming to us. And that was really stressful until I managed to delegate and bring other people on, which was really hard because
I can relate.
Yeah, because it's like my baby, but also like I'm a perfectionist and I struggle.
Mm-hmm.
I do struggle with communication. I'm not going to lie. Communication with like lots of different people. 1-to-1 is fine, but I found it took a while, but now I found, well, she's like interim COO. I'm calling myself CEO now. We work so well. And again, this is about knowing yourself and your own neurodiversity. But like on my own, I was never going to achieve the growth that we've achieved in the last few months. We've brought on volunteers, we've brought on speakers. It's amazing. Like so many amazing people. We're going to have such a big impact this year. But I would never have been able to do that on my own. But there was like a barrier. I really found it hard. Just took this one person, Leah Godfrey, to, I don't know, I say communicate on my level. It does feel like the kind of puzzle pieces, like we just really complement each other. And I think that's really great. And I think that's an example of neuro-inclusive practice. It's who says that the boss needs to be just like telling everyone what to do and completely perfect. And no, I admit I do need help and I do need that person to support me. But then when we work together, our impact is absolutely huge. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely relate to that. And again, for a different reason and a different perspective, I guess it probably took me 3 times as long as you to realize that delegation and getting others to help with the work is a good idea. Had to let go of some stuff. And so I'm really pleased the last 12 months, Inclusive Sport Design has brought on a number of associate consultants that are coming in and assisting with various pieces of work that come our way. But the driver for me was, yes, to have extra hands on deck to increase the impact and do more work and all of that, but also because I needed to have and wanted to have more diversity in my business, in what we're doing, and making sure that when we're going out to organizations, we're walking the talk in terms of bringing lived experience and diversity to the perspectives of our professional practice, right? And so that's like critical. And it probably brings up a question for you in terms of like, why is having that lived experience input into whether it's broad diversity, inclusion strategy, or if it's focused in on this neurodiverse autism engagement space, like why is having lived experience in that critical? And how do you guys go about it?
I think it ties into lived experience is literally the foundation of neurodiverse sport. And it's funny, we've gone the other way. We've gone lived experience. And then to be fair, like I had really good relationships with certain practitioners from the start. So it wasn't total BS that I was preaching. Like we've gone from having like majority lived experience to now bringing on practitioners, and there is like research emerging that we've been supporting for the last couple of years. But I think we really wanted to be super secure in our approach and how it differed from anything else that was out there in sport at the time, because everything that was available, and there wasn't much, not really anything specifically with neurodiversity, but quite a bit to do with kind of disability sport. And obviously there is an intersect, but neurodiversity kind of encompasses, it could be neurodivergent and be in disability sport or mainstream sport. But I found it was all talking about people and not letting people talk for themselves. And if they struggle to talk for themselves, don't talk for them, give them the support that they need to talk for themselves. So again, it's like you're talking about practice what you preach. And I just think I'd had so many experiences of being misunderstood. And I felt like the narrative in the kind of medical world was too medicalized.
Yeah.
and it needed to change. And to change something, you need to swing in quite hard in one direction, right? Which was what we did. And now we're bringing on some experts in terms of like the medical side of things, but they're also very neuro-informed and neuro-affirming. So I guess for the listeners, it ties into the social model of disability or difference if you don't consider yourself disabled, but the social model was really born around, I think, just before the neurodiversity movement. And the neurodiversity movement and the neurodiversity paradigm really shifted society's thinking from like that medical model to more of a social model. And what the medical model is like, suggesting that people are wrong, they're broken, they need to be fixed, they need to be cured. So there's very much a drive to find a cure for autism, for example. And then as a kind of response to that, the neurodiversity movement was born, and the neurodiversity paradigm suggests that divergence is natural and necessary to human evolution. And if you look at the evolutionary model of psychiatry or psychiatry, like it talks about there's certain specific traits that would have been required throughout human history and evolution. And there's a reason why we're not all-rounders and why we have specific skills and abilities. But it also suggests that there's no wrong kind of brain or way of being. And the kind of movement is a kind of social movement or a bit of a human rights movement akin to the women's rights movement, gay rights, etc.
Yeah, we might drop some links in the show notes for this episode. We've got a really simple, I think it's pretty good little explainer around what the social model is all about compared to medical model, and we might grab some links and stuff.
That'll be good, because I probably said that in a really wordy way. I went backwards and forwards for the...
No, it's good, and we'll point listeners to some sort of additional literature and resources to dive a bit deeper into that, because obviously we can only touch the surface in a conversation like this today, but it's a really important area. So I'm gonna take a shift. I'm gonna change gears here, as they say, and I want to talk a little bit more about your life away from sport. Now, I know, and I met the gorgeous little human just before we jumped onto the recording. You're a very new mum.
I am,
and I'm keen to know, how has that changed your life, and has your elite sporting experience prepared you for the stresses and challenges of parenthood?
It's literally a joy. Yeah, I'm so aware of myself, how my brain works, like my capacity, that, touch wood, I've not really lost it emotionally at any point or in terms of like stress. But like I did have, obviously, I'd say being on lithium for 5 years was the most exhausting experience of my life, and being sedated and then having to get up and train 3 times a day. I don't know if anything will ever be as tiring as that. So
yeah,
and then I also had with my luck, I had hyperemesis during pregnancy, which is like extreme morning sickness the whole time. So I was like being sick 5 times a day to the end. So like actually having the baby and the joy of like, even if there's like difficulties, which they're not really, the reward is just consistent. And I said to you, I'm lucky because I'm getting good sleep, essentially. But I don't know, it's just amazing. Like, there's just, like I said, the reward is there every minute of every day. So I can't be, and then I also know how to manage my own stress and my own emotions. So those two things together just make it like an absolute joy. Like, I'm just loving life at the moment. And I have to say, I didn't really stop working. But again, I knew that I needed that input. And it would just be amazing if everyone kind of knew the formula to their own kind of like brain. I think people would just live much less stressful, happier lives.
Yeah.
Long time coming,
probably
though.
true.
It took me 30 years.
I probably still need to work out the formula for my brain. But I can tell you, you're in the early stages. Things will change. That 2-3-year-old age group, things will
when
start
there's
to get
like
social.
tantrums and things. There are some sort of like crying spells at the moment, but like when there's tantrums and like crawling away, running away, things like that.
Yeah.
I'll probably need to find different strategies to.
When they realize they're their own person and they're not like part of you anymore, that's when stuff gets challenging.
Yeah. Luckily, I've got a husband who has, okay, I shouldn't put this down to ADHD, but like he has a lot of energy. He does have ADHD. Like if he's not done a 5-hour ride in the morning, he's like bouncing off the walls. But it does mean that he's like a bit of a whirlwind in the house. He does a lot of housework and things. So I am blessed in that way. I know he's like a real modern man, but he's always got her in a papoose and like doing all the housework and stuff.
Just doing stuff. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, yeah. Good luck with it. And yeah, I cross my fingers that you keep having great sleep.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Not all of us did.
Yeah, sorry to rub it in.
But that's all right. Look, that's great. Congratulations again. Coming to the end of our chat. And as always in our chats, we do some quick fire questions. So are you ready to do our quick fire questions?
Yeah, I'll try. I didn't actually look at them, so this is going to be really telling.
We'll see. First one's easy, right?
Yeah.
Who's your favorite athlete? Could be a full time, could be right now.
My husband. That's so cute, isn't it? Okay, so he was on the GB rowing team for a little bit, and then he's been on like multiple pro road cycling teams, and then he's been a gravel cyclist for the last few years. If it's not my husband, then it's Maddie Nutt, who is also a gravel cyclist, and she's a YouTuber as well, and she's a really good friend.
Cool.
So yeah.
Well, we're going to we'll find some links for both of them, and also get some stuff around gravel cycling, because I'm pretty sure there'll be plenty of people out there going, what the hell's that?
Yeah, no, it's really cool. I've done some. It's really good.
Sounds dangerous.
It did give me, what's it called, jaw lock when I did a 3-day race, because you're like, oh no, at least I am. Yeah. I think you're meant to like put all your weight in the seat and in your pelvis and use your core, but I was just all up in my arms. But yeah.
Yeah, right. Oh God. Yeah, we'll put some links in the show notes for people who are interested in that.
Yeah.
All right. Next one. What's your favorite team? Favorite sports team?
These are really hard, because I'm like more of I like people, not, I don't know, things and teams, but oh God.
Do you have a football team?
So hard. I don't know if I can even give you anything. Nothing's coming to my brain.
You could just say Team GB.
That's so rubbish.
It's not like Wrexham FC, like the rest of the planet at the moment.
Oh yeah, no, I do Wrexham because I like the actor that, what's his name?
Reynolds or John, or the McElhenney.
No, it's Ryan something, isn't it?
Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah. Okay, I'll say Wrexham.
All right, there we go. Wrexham's cool. Incidentally, and a side note, apparently I have family history that can be traced to Wrexham. There you go.
I actually also have family history that can be traced just to the nether shredded route northwest of Wrexham as well.
There you go. Maybe we're related.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
I'm not doing a good job of these quick fire questions. I've slowed them down and I also can't think of anything.
Don't have any answers, and that's okay. It's fun. The next one is probably a bit easier. What's your greatest sporting achievement? Now, you've mentioned to an Olympic Games and being on Team GB and that. So that's pretty good. Is there anything specific beyond that?
I think for me it was like, I'm going to tell you what the proper answer, and I'm going to tell you one that flashed into my mind. So for me, it was like coming back from when I was re-diagnosed and training through lockdown and just getting myself back on track. going from like really not thriving at all to thriving again after such a terrible time. I'm really proud of that, because that was really difficult to mentally turn that around. And like my performance test improved by 17 seconds. Like it was huge.
Wow.
So I'm really proud of that. And yeah, the one that flashed into my mind was when I did an 82 kilo power clean.
That's pretty decent.
That's all right, isn't it? Considering like when you
I
row,
don't
you
think-
just strip all the muscle away. I was strong once.
I've never power cleaned anything in my life.
Also,
I don't think I ever will.
78 kilo bench press. That's pretty decent, isn't it? But then I did watch the Olympics powerlifting, and that kind of put
That's
me
the
to
warm
shame.
up.
Yeah, literally. It'll be like the lightweight that does that.
Oh, good. What's the first thing you do when you get up in the morning?
At the moment, feed the baby, walk the dog with a coffee and something that I probably shouldn't eat, like a bun or something like that.
Something sweet and baked. Yeah.
Something sweet and baked, yeah.
But that's all right. You're allowed to. You're allowed to. The last one's serious, all right? Great for this one. The last one is, and this is the wrap up, all right? So what's your best inclusion tip for our listeners?
My best inclusion tip would be to like look up the double empathy problem and what that means, and how we all experience the world differently. And miscommunication and misunderstanding usually comes from the fact that we assume that other people experience the world as we do. And it is hard to communicate with people who don't experience the world like you. But if we could all be a little bit more aware of that, we could then develop empathy, and we would then be motivated to be more inclusive, accepting, understanding.
I love that. We're going to jot some stuff in around that idea. I class empathy as an inclusion skill. If you have the ability to be empathetic and proactively seek to understand someone else's perspective, then you are.
Yeah, it feels like an umbrella. Like it's something you might have guiding principles, but the empathy bit needs to be like overarching, right?
Yeah. And sometimes you have, it's a skill to learn. That's
because
great.
I used to be like,
that.
I didn't used to be that empathetic. Honestly. My husband's out the window with the baby. But yeah, no, I definitely have developed empathy over my kind of life, for sure. I'm not going to say the kind of things that I would say when I was younger, but they were not empathetic or understanding.
Yeah, it's something we've got to learn and keep working on. And given your baby's bobbing around at the window, that's probably a good time to stick a pin in it and wrap up our conversation. It's been wonderful, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your what is the morning in the UK today. So thanks so much for joining me on the Sport is for Everybody podcast. Can you share with our listeners how people can connect with you, follow your work at Neurodiverse Sport and other places?
Yeah, so we've got the website, which has just been launched. It's still like having pages launched at different times, but you can visit the website, which is neurodiversesport.com, or you can look us up on LinkedIn. I'm also on LinkedIn. I have a very unusually spelt name, so like you'll find me easily. And we also have a YouTube and an Instagram.
Awesome. We'll drop all the relevant links into the show notes to make it easy for people. And for all of our avid listeners at home, thanks for joining us today. Make sure you head over to inclusivesportdesign.com for more resources and help you take action on inclusion. Don't forget you can join the mailing list as well and get free inclusion tips direct to your inbox. Super useful stuff. As usual, we'll also drop the transcript in the show notes on the website, so stay tuned for that. And we ask this every episode, but if you haven't done so yet, make sure you hit subscribe on whatever platform you're watching or listening on, and take a moment to give us a rating. That'll be amazing because it'll help us get through the algorithm and get in front of more people so that we can share amazing stories like Caragh's the world over. So that's it. Caragh McMurtry, thanks for making inclusion happen, and thanks
Thank
for joining
you.
us today.
Thanks.